Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more.
The ad read, child care person wanted, full-time, live-in position, private quarters, use of car, light housekeeping, salary commensurate with experience. It seemed perfect. I'd get a place to stay, time to work on my book, and an easy job looking after a child. The benefits were appealing. It was worth looking into. After several rings, a young woman answered the phone. My mind raced, rehearsing what to say. Hello, Mrs. Duncan? Yes. My name's Terry Parson, calling about your ad for a child care position, I said, trying to sound confident despite my doubts about applying for a typically female role. I wondered how she'd react. Hello, Terry. Yes, the position is open if you'd like to come for an interview, she replied, a bit hesitant. I can make it at 2 p.m. today, she added. She hadn't expected a man to apply, but she was legally required to consider me. I confirmed the time, got her address, and set the appointment. I easily found her house, located in a quiet, upscale neighborhood with manicured lawns and professional landscaping. I rang the bell, hearing a Westminster chime. Moments later, the ornate oak door opened to reveal a woman, whom I assumed was Mrs. Duncan. Mrs. Duncan? Hi, I'm Terry Parson. I'm here about the child care position. Yes, come in, she said, stepping aside. I'm Pam. Let's keep this informal. She led me into the spacious, well-decorated family room. The house was beautiful, comfortable, with a fireplace in the corner and large windows that framed a peaceful view of the backyard filled with trees. Pam poured me coffee from a carafe placed on the coffee table. Despite the pleasant surroundings, it was hard to stay focused on the job. Pam was tall, slender, and well-dressed in a casual yet expensive way. Her hair was neatly styled, and her makeup flawless. I felt an immediate attraction. As we sat down, she started the conversation. I have to admit, Terry, I was surprised a man applied for this position. I expected only women. Have you cared for children before? Not exactly, I said. But I come from a large family, and as the middle child, I helped take care of my siblings while my mom worked. I'm confident I can take care of your child just as well as anyone else, and I'm experienced with housekeeping too. Interesting. But why do you want this job? It's, well, rather domestic. To be honest, Pam, I'm a writer working on a book. I figure this job will give me a place to live, some quiet time to write, and a little extra income. I think it's a good fit, and I'd be a responsible caregiver. That's an interesting perspective. My son is a boy, and it might be good for him to have a male caregiver, especially since he doesn't have a father. I'm divorced and a single parent, so you'd be a good influence. But you don't know how old my son is, and that could affect how much time you'd need to spend with him. You don't have nanny experience, so no references to check. Plus, it's a live-in position, which could be awkward with a man in the house. There are pros and cons to consider. Let me think it over. Please fill out this form, and I'll get back to you. After I filled out the form, Pam escorted me to the door. We shook hands, and I left. The interview had been brief, so I couldn't get a clear sense of whether I'd be hired, but I couldn't help feeling eager about the opportunity. Work on my book has been slow, and funds are running out. I need to find a job soon. A week later, Pam called and asked me to come in for another meeting. Hi, Terry. I wanted to invite you back for another talk about the child care position. I'll be upfront, just as you were with me. I haven't had much luck with applicants. The few who applied weren't suitable for various reasons, and I don't have much time to deal with this. I've got a busy schedule and a career to manage. I checked your references, and even though you don't have nanny experience, you're the best candidate so far. Let me explain the position in detail. It's full-time child care for my son, who is a year and a half old, plus managing the household, some cooking and shopping as needed. I have a housekeeper for cleaning, and you can hire help for outside work if you like. You'll be responsible for running the house and caring for my child. You'll get room and board, free use of my cars, reimbursement for household and child care expenses, and a salary of $250 a week. You'll also have some vacation time with us. Does that sound good? Yes, Pam. It sounds very generous, I replied, though I couldn't help but feel something was off. It seemed too good to be true. But she was still attractive to me, so I listened further. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a single parent, so it'll be just the three of us here. But there's an issue. I had originally planned to hire a female nanny. I run my business from home, and I have clients visiting regularly. I can't risk tarnishing my reputation by having an unmarried man living with me. So, if you take the position, you'll need to dress and present yourself as a woman at all times. No one can know you're male. Looking at you, I think it wouldn't be too difficult. You have very fine features, almost feminine, which is one of the reasons I considered you. If anyone discovers you're a man, it would be very embarrassing for me and you'd be fired immediately. I know this is an unusual requirement, but it's the best solution I have. What do you think? Everything had been sounding perfect until she added that last part. But it wasn't terrible. Dress as a woman full-time? It felt odd, but the job otherwise was ideal. What did I have to lose besides my identity, my gender? I don't know about passing as a woman, Pam. I've never dressed as one. Well, almost never, I thought, recalling a past memory I'd rather forget. I expected that, she said. I'll help you with the transformation if you're willing. I'm sure we can make it work with your full cooperation. It's important that you pass, since you'll interact with other nannies, clients, service people, and merchants. You'll need to convince everyone you're a lady. On the plus side, you'll have time to work on your writing and enjoy the benefits of the job. She smiled. You might even like living as a woman. Okay, I guess I'll give it a try, I said, unsure. The position sounds amazing, but this female impersonation thing is new to me. Pam reassured me. It won't be so bad. I'm confident we can make it work. I'll advance you the first month's pay to buy a basic wardrobe, and I'll provide the uniforms you'll need. In this neighborhood, nannies wear uniforms. Yours will be a black polyester dress with a white collar, black hose, and flat black shoes. Oh, one more thing, Terry. You'll need to sign an employment contract. It's to protect both of us. It says you'll remain employed as long as your identity as a woman is maintained and kept secret, and you'll stay employed until my son turns 6 and can attend school full-time. If you break any of these conditions, you'll be immediately terminated and will have to pay back the salary you've earned up until that point. But you'll be guaranteed work for the next 4.5 years. Now I was committed to living as a woman for the next 4.5 years. It was ideal job security, though under very unusual terms. My manhood for stability. With mixed emotions, I signed the contract. With my belongings packed into 2 suitcases, I moved in the next day, and the transformation began immediately. Pam, little Jerry, and I headed out to shop for my new wardrobe. Pam picked out basic underclothing, explaining as we went along, though I was too focused on keeping Jerry entertained to pay much attention. She grabbed cotton and nylon underpants, bras with padded cups and extra enhancement pads, slips, both half and full, and various colors of hosiery, especially black, including pantyhose and thigh-highs. It felt like she was shopping for someone else, so I just followed along without much interest. Next, we went to the ladies' clothing section. Pam selected a variety of dresses, skirts, tops, slacks, and shorts, occasionally asking for my opinion. I just nodded along, not really understanding what she was saying, while I kept Jerry happy. Our next stop was the shoe department, where Pam bought me some casual women's shoes, medium-heeled pumps, and my uniform shoes. She mentioned that we wore the same shoe size, which could come in handy. Finally, we visited the cosmetics counter. Pam picked out a selection of makeup for me. I had no idea what she bought, but she knew, and that was enough. The last stop was a wig salon. Pam told the sales associate I needed a wig for a play role, so I was fitted for a suitable wig in my own hair color, styled in a manageable pageboy cut. The wig complemented my features well, just as Pam had predicted. Back at the house, we unpacked everything, removed the price tags, and organized everything into the drawers and closets of my room, a spare bedroom Pam had set up as a nanny's quarters. The room was decorated in pink and white with lace and chiffon accents, complete with pink floral wallpaper. The bathroom had pink fixtures with gold trim. It was all very charming, and it gave me a sense of déjà vu. Pam told me to take a hot bath, shave any body hair, and change into my new clothes. She told me to call her if I needed help dressing, but I said I didn't think it would be necessary since I had grown up with sisters. I took a long bath, shaved my legs, arms, underarms, and chest, and made sure to shave my face carefully in preparation for makeup. When I was done, I dried off and applied body powder, enjoying the smooth feeling of my skin. It felt strange to be hairless, but that was just the start. I slipped into a pair of nylon panties, feeling the soft fabric against my skin. I then put on pantyhose, rolling them up my legs, enjoying how they shaped my legs. Afterward, I put on a front closure bra Pam had bought. I filled the padded cups with extra forms, creating a feminine figure. I stepped into a half slip, followed by a skirt and a rain blouse. The uniform dress would come later. The blouse buttons were backwards, but I figured I'd get used to it. The blouse fit snugly, pushing against my chest and making me feel awkward, but fortunately, the full skirt hid any bulge. I finished getting dressed with a pair of 3-inch heels and placed the wig on my head. I checked myself in the mirror and felt pleased with my appearance. I looked presentable, and more importantly, I felt good. Surprisingly, I wasn't embarrassed by how I looked, even though I had expected to feel awkward. Wearing these clothes all the time might not be so bad, I thought. After practicing a few steps in my room, I walked out to show Pam. "Wow, Terry, you make an attractive woman. I knew you could pull it off. How does it feel to wear a skirt?" "Surprisingly comfortable, Pam. I think I could get used to this," I said, convincing myself as much as her. "Good to hear," Pam replied, smiling. "You're going to be wearing those clothes for a while. Let's finish the look with some makeup." We entered the master bathroom, a spacious room featuring a large jacuzzi tub, a separate shower, and a vanity surrounded by lights with a mirrored wall. Pam sat me down in front of the mirror, where she had arranged an assortment of cosmetics. She complimented my smooth shave before beginning to apply foundation cream with a small sponge, blending it into every detail of my face and neck. As she worked, she explained each product and its purpose. She applied makeup to one side of my face and allowed me to replicate it on the other side so I could learn. I tried to act amazed by the transformation, though I knew the process well. By the time she finished, I was staring at a beautiful woman in the mirror. I couldn't help but feel delightfully feminine. "You're a natural, Terry," Pam said, smiling. "You look great as a woman. You'll have no trouble passing, and I think you'll enjoy it. We won't even need to change your name. So, how do you feel about your new look?" "Well, Pam, it's not bad, actually, it's pretty good," I said, looking at myself from all angles. I noticed my voice had softened. Pam immediately picked up on the change. "Let's start working on the basics," she suggested as we moved to the family room. Pam began teaching me how to sit properly, walk gracefully, gesture like a lady, control my voice, and perfect my eye movements, facial expressions, and vocabulary. I never realized how many subtle differences existed between genders. Like most men, I had always taken women's actions for granted. But now, I had a personal reason to pay attention. I practiced everything Pam taught me, focusing on the role I was now living. Wearing a skirt felt so different from pants. It changed how I moved, how I sat, and how I walked. I had to keep my legs together while sitting, which shaped my modesty, and the skirt restricted my stride, yet I found it enjoyable. We practiced until late into the evening. At bedtime, Pam reminded me she had forgotten to buy me night clothes. She handed me one of her nightgowns, a pink nylon, full-length gown with delicate lace trim that fit perfectly, just as she had expected. I removed my makeup with cold cream and collapsed onto the pillow, feeling relaxed and at ease in the comfortable garment. It felt right, this new lifestyle seemed like it would work. I just had to adjust my mindset. Pam was undeniably attractive, but now that I was living as a woman, how could I possibly attract her? Would she still see me as a man? And what kind of man dresses as a woman? It was all so confusing, but sleep eventually overtook me. For the next 2 weeks, each morning I eagerly dressed, applied my makeup, and after taking care of Jerry, practiced the steps Pam had taught me how to sit, walk, and gesture with grace. She was always there to remind me if I slipped up, until everything became instinctive. When my uniforms arrived, I eagerly switched to the new dresses. By then, I had adjusted to the skirt, the modesty it required, and found it comfortable. Worn with a padded bra and black pantyhose, they were stylish and feminine. Pam had excellent taste. Pam stayed with me during this time, and we became better acquainted. She built a sense of trust with me, and we related as two women. I focused on my transformation, pushing my past to the back of my mind. Little progress was made on my book as I concentrated on my new role. I found myself embracing the learning process, even starting to enjoy it. Pam was very convincing, her approach was working. Eventually, Pam had to leave for a client meeting, leaving me alone with Jerry for the first time. I wasn't concerned about caring for him, but the possibility of a visitor made me nervous. I didn't want to risk my position by failing to present myself convincingly as a woman. Pam reassured me there would be no issue. She felt I was completely passable. There were no visitors that day, but while Jerry napped, I continued practicing my femininity, pretending I had guests to entertain. Though I knew I should focus on writing, I couldn't shake my concern with my appearance. But my confidence in playing the role of a lady was growing. One afternoon, while I was preparing lunch, the doorbell rang. It was a salesman offering lawn services. He immediately accepted me as the nanny of the house, treating me with courtesy and never suspecting anything. It was my first interaction with another person as a woman, and I passed without a hitch. I felt both relieved and pleased. Afterward, I told Pam about the encounter, and she suggested we go out in public, perhaps to dinner, to boost my confidence. I changed into something appropriate, freshened my makeup, got Jerry ready, and we headed to a restaurant. Everything went smoothly. I worked hard to act like a lady, which had become easier, and nobody seemed to notice anything unusual, including the waitress. Pam was thrilled with how I handled the situation. I knew passing as a woman was important, especially with the contract looming over me. As luck would have it, Sarah, the nanny of Pam's neighbor, spotted us and came over to say hello. Pam introduced us and invited her to visit us at home. Sarah seemed pleased to meet me and promised to stop by. This would be my real test, being accepted by a woman who had no idea of my true identity. After dinner, we returned home to put Jerry to bed and review the evening. Pam gave me a glowing report. She said I was doing an excellent job with my transformation, even better than she had hoped, and she was happy with my work as the nanny. We had become good friends, but it felt more like a woman-to-woman friendship. We talked about makeup, fashion, children, girl talk, and I took care of household matters without mentioning them to her. My hopes of a romantic relationship with Pam were fading. A week later, Sarah came to visit with her charge, Jamie. We spent the afternoon getting to know each other while the children played. I was careful with my behavior and speech around her, but she never showed any suspicion. She treated me like another woman, and we had plenty of girl talk. At first, I was a little nervous, but soon I relaxed and enjoyed her company. For someone who hadn't worn women's clothing in a long time, it felt so natural to be with another woman and feel like one myself. Occasionally, I wondered what she would think if she knew what was underneath my clothes, but I quickly dismissed those thoughts and accepted that I was now living as a lady. Over time, we became good friends, and through Sarah, I met other nannies in the neighborhood. I was accepted as a woman by all of them, and in their company, I honed my skills in presenting myself as a genetic woman. We often met for coffee, gossiping and learning more about socializing as a woman. I was determined to get it right. Sarah even accompanied me to get my new driver's license as a female. I told her I was new to the state, and she never questioned it. The officials at the license bureau didn't either. Within a few months, my hair grew long enough to stop wearing the wig, and I kept the same pageboy style. With Pam's help, I shaped my eyebrows to a more feminine look. She suggested permanent removal of my beard and other masculine body hair, and I agreed. Pam arranged for laser treatments, covering the cost herself. In less than 3 months, my beard was completely gone, my eyebrows were permanently arched, and work was almost complete on my chest and legs, just in time for summer. I had fully adapted to my role as a house manager and caregiver to Jerry. My feminine behavior had become instinctive, and I had almost forgotten how to be a man, and I didn't care. Pam was right. I was comfortable living as a woman. So when she invited me to accompany her and Jerry on a 2-week trip to Cape Cod, I eagerly accepted. My nanny duties continued, but it felt like a vacation since Jerry was so easy to care for. He was like my own son, and I was like his mother. We traveled in casual clothes. We stayed in a hotel in Provincetown, spending time shopping, browsing antique stores, and walking on the beach. During Jerry's naps, I worked on my book. Pam watched Jerry for a few nights while I attended some female impersonator shows. The performers were fantastic, presenting themselves as women with songs, dances, and high energy. I admired their efforts but had no regrets about my own transition. I didn't have to switch genders every day, and I was accepted as a genetic woman even by the transvestites. Pam was delighted when I told her, and so was I. She said I had passed the test by Masters of Gender Performance. I gathered the courage to buy a swimsuit and wear it while walking on the beach. It was a conservative design, yet somewhat revealing, a big step for me. I had to fill the bust cups with foam, but it looked authentic. Pam said I looked lovely, and I believed her. I even got a few admiring glances from men, which made me feel validated. I would have been disappointed if they hadn't looked. During this trip, Pam and I had a chance to talk about our pasts. I learned that she had been the victim of a bad marriage and a bitter divorce. She was really down on men now. She vowed never to have anything to do with them again. She had been burned once and that was enough. I had to ask how she felt about me. I was still a biological male, and I still had male feelings towards her. She replied that she didn't consider me a man anymore and felt very comfortable with me in my new persona. My transition was complete. She accepted me as a woman. She proved it by changing clothes in front of me in the hotel without any display of modesty. My femininity came forth when I could view this beautiful lady in her undies and not get excited. After all, I was wearing the exact same clothing as she was. I now lusted for her, but not as a man for a woman but as a lesbian. I finally admitted to Pam about my past. I was the only boy in a family of 8 kids. Being a middle child and my mother being the sole support as a widow, we had limited income, so I was forced to share my sister's clothes as much as possible. For the most part, I was raised as a girl since I spent most of my childhood in girls' clothing, going to parties, church, social events in pretty dresses and to school in mostly androgynous attire, boys' things on the outside, girls underneath since my boy clothes was so limited. I grew to enjoy being a girl since I hardly knew any other way of life and had only female playmates until I was too old to conceal my masculinity. In my early teens, I even dated a few boys with my older sister's help. They made me very feminine. My transition to manhood was difficult. I took to writing because I had limited skills in other areas while writing came easy for me. This domestic position was a natural for me, so I applied and fortunately got the job. The requirement to live as a woman was a bonus I hadn't expected. I admit, I love living as a woman again. I noticed you took to the transformation easily and you were a very fast learner, Pam disclosed. I'm happy you found yourself. I'll do whatever I can to help you, Terry. My admission drew our friendship even closer. The second week of our stay in P-Town, Pam cancelled my hotel room and had me share her room and her bed. It just seemed so right. We slept as sisters, no, lesbian lovers. We kissed, embraced, and made love in every position without penetration other than orally. It was fulfilling to both of us. It was beautiful. Our vacation ended too soon, but our relationship didn't. Our bond became intense. At home, Pam was the husband and head of the household, while I assumed the role of the wife, and of course nanny to Jerry. I moved in with Pam, shared her bed, and satisfied her any way a lover should. It wasn't a business relationship anymore, it was a marriage and I was the bride. I loved it, I loved Pam. She shared her entire wardrobe with me, dressing me in many of her fancy dresses which I would wear to model for her. I was completely comfortable while attending her parties wearing a cocktail dress with high heels and dark hosiery as a maid to serve her guests. It was at one such party that a gentleman client approached me and asked me out for a date. Pam whispered to me that I should accept, it would be favorable for her business, so I did. I had been living as a woman long enough so I wasn't worried about being discovered. In fact, I was very relaxed with the prospect of dating a mature man. He made me feel very feminine, extending all the courtesies a gentleman does for his lady. I loved the attention. The date ended with a warm kiss, my first kiss by an adult male, and I enjoyed it. That was the prelude to another date and more kisses and some petting. I enjoyed the sensation of being held and kissed by a man, but knowing it could go nowhere, I ended it before we got emotionally involved. But I did continue to casually date other men. I loved being the target of men's affections, being pursued, romanced, seduced. It was wonderful. I learned to pleasure a man in a very ladylike fashion. After all, only a male knows what pleasures a man the most, and I got very good at it. And I could conceal my maleness well enough to give them some liberties. I was very careful about that. After my first date, I asked Pam if there was any way to enlarge my chest. I was becoming self-conscious about wearing chest forms, especially when a man was holding me. Even the high-quality silicone forms didn't feel lifelike enough anymore. She suggested chest implants, and after discussing it with her doctor friend, we agreed it was the best option. Hormones were too risky, with unpredictable side effects. So, the procedure was scheduled, and I received chest implants that allowed me to fill a C-cup bra with my own flesh. The results were fantastic, and I was thrilled with my new figure. The surgery was relatively painless, and now I had real cleavage, not just an illusion. The tactile sensation was incredible. Pam was just as excited as I was, and she couldn't keep her hands off me, which I loved. I could now wear her dresses with low necklines, opening up a whole new part of her wardrobe. I was so happy with my new body. Jerry was growing fast, almost 4 years old now. One day, I found him playing in our room. He was walking around in my high heels, with a nylon stocking around his neck like a scarf, and lipstick smeared on his face. He told me he was playing mommy. I asked him if he wanted to look like a little girl, like Nanny, and he said yes. I cleaned his face, removed his boy clothes, and dressed him in a pair of panties and stockings, pinning up the extra fabric to fit. I added a slip, tying it with a bow to make it look like a gown. Then, I carefully applied fresh lipstick, blush, and eyeshadow, turning him into a sweet little girl, complete with a ribbon in his curly hair. He happily stayed dressed that way until Pam came home. When she saw him, she laughed and hugged him. I didn't know I had a little girl. "You're beautiful, Jerry. Do you like those clothes?" she asked. "Yes, Mommy. This is fun. Nanny dressed me. Now I can be like you and Nanny," he replied. I apologized to Pam for doing that, but she smiled and said it was perfect. It made me happy wearing those clothes. Maybe Jerry would be happy, too. She was in no hurry for Jerry to change. She let him play it out, but he stayed that way till bedtime. I told Pam it was Jerry's own idea to cross-dress. He had played with my things before, but this time he dressed himself, so I helped a little. We wondered if he wanted to do more of it. The next morning, he asked me if he could do it again, but I told him my clothes don't really fit very well and that would buy him his own things. He accepted that. Later, I again found him wearing my lipstick and shoes. I called Pam to tell her what happened. When she came home that day, she had bought Jerry some new clothes. She figured he would just secretly wear our things anyway, so let him get it out of his system now. She bought him little girl's panties, petticoats, a dress, and shoes which he immediately put on and came out to proudly model for us. With his long curly hair, he did indeed look like a little girl. He continued to dress that way for the next few days until I was able to discourage him by making him do girls' chores. I talked with the other nannies, during our routine coffee sessions, about Jerry's behavior towards crossdressing. Some of the others had heard of it, but none had first-hand experience. They thought maybe because there were no male figures in the household. But then some had girls who never wore dresses and played with boys' toys and games and never thought anything unusual of it. So why were we so disturbed about Jerry? He'll likely outgrow it as the girls will. Somehow, I wasn't so sure. I never outgrew the proclivity. Pam wasn't helping. She continued to buy Jerry girls things. She thought it was fun, the stuff being so cute. Jerry loved them. I'm not sure whether because they were just new items or because they were girls' things, and he continued to wear them and slowly began to act very effeminate while Pam encouraged it. My threats of doing girls' chores no longer worked. He jumped right into the tasks at the mention of it. I think Pam was allowing this to happen as her way of getting back at men. She had made me into a woman, now she was doing the same to her son, and I was helping her. For Jerry's 5th birthday party, we invited the neighbors' children and their nannies, of course. Jerry was now wearing girls' things frequently and behaving accordingly. Since all of the other children were girls, he fit right in with them and they played together so well. He was receiving no male role model support, certainly not from me. Trying as hard as I could, well, not too hard, I couldn't prevent Jerry from wanting to be a girl, so I gave up completely. Pam and I discussed taking him for counseling as a last resort to ease my conscience, but she wanted to wait until it was closer to him starting school, another year. At that time, my contract would be up and I could leave, although I don't know where I'd go. I was happy here, I loved Pam, and I loved being a woman. I knew I could no longer live as a man anymore, nor did I want to be one. We continued to let Jerry behave as a girl or a boy, whichever he chose, not unlike the genetic girls. He chose to play only with the other girls and they accepted him as one, especially when he dressed the part. Pam let him, encouraged him to wear makeup and play dress-up, complete with jewelry, nylons, pretty dresses. She bought him everything including feminine toys and games. She was completely feminizing her little boy, I think to get back at Jerry's father. Whenever I'd remind Jerry that he was a little boy, he'd cry, deny it, and if I pushed it, he'd say he wished he was a girl, he didn't want to be a boy. I knew we were in trouble. I finally convinced Pam to take Jerry to a counselor who decided, after extensive testing, that Jerry was indeed confused about his gender. Of course, I didn't mention about Pam's encouragement for the child to be a girl. He had developed all the characteristics and attitudes of a female, and to regress back would be very difficult and harmful to his interpersonal relations with other children of both genders. Pam talked to her doctor friend about Jerry, seeking medical advice, perhaps a reassignment to make the body fit the mind. The doctor said that because Jerry was so young, nothing radical should be done now except to continue raising him in the gender of his choice, as a girl. When he approaches puberty, they could block his male physical development and cause him to develop as a female. Later, surgery would finish the reassignment. So, Pam agreed to that and made plans for Jerry to attend private school as a girl. In the fall of Jerry's 5th year, Jerry was enrolled and started a private school as a little girl. His name was legally changed to Jerry. My contract with Pam as Jerry's nanny was completed and I was free to leave. Pam extended the offer for me to stay with her as her assistant in her business with the same terms as before, which I readily accepted. I would have married her, but she would have no part of that, so we remained together as lovers. In my mind, I was a total woman and would never change back to being a drab man. Jerry socialized as a girl and, upon reaching puberty, began a hormone schedule to allow her body to become that of a woman. She evolved into a beautiful teenage young woman. After high school, she had reassignment surgery to become a legal female. She never learned my true gender, but always considered me a woman, her nanny. I never did complete work on my book.